Hello everyone, welcome back to our channel. What happens when a single truth buried for decades tears through a man's entire identity and forces him to face the son he never knew he had? This is the story of Bill and Martin, two men who lived completely separate lives, shaped by completely different realities, until one devastating revelation connected them in the most profound way possible. Bill, a man built on control and precision, suddenly found himself staring at DNA results that confirmed what he had tried to deny. Martin was his son, and Martin, he had spent his whole life carrying unanswered questions about who he really was, never imagining that the answer would walk straight into his world and blow everything apart. What followed was not a heartwarming reunion. It was raw, it was painful, it was the kind of confrontation that only decades of silence and buried secrets can produce, and somehow, through all of that fire, both men begin to change in ways neither of them expected. Let's start from the very beginning, because the story deserves to be told properly. Bill is not the kind of man who loses his footing easily. He is composed, calculated, and deeply in control of every aspect of his life. He has spent years constructing a version of himself that the world sees powerful, unshakable, untouchable. So when the rumor first surfaced that Martin could be his son, Bill didn't just doubt it. He pushed back hard, he demanded proof, he lashed out at anyone who dared to put that idea in front of him. And honestly, I get it. Because if the truth were real, it wouldn't just be news. It would be a wrecking ball aimed directly at the foundation of everything he believed about himself. But here's the thing about truth, it doesn't wait for you to be ready. Deep down, even as Bill fought against it, something was already cracking. Fragments of memory started rising to the surface. Faces he had buried, moments he had chosen to forget, choices he had made in a different time under different pressure that he had never fully reckoned with. And when the DNA results finally arrived, cold, clinical, and completely irrefutable, Bill had nowhere left to run. The walls came down, and standing alone in that moment, holding those results in trembling hands, he wasn't afraid. He was devastated by the sheer, crushing weight of what he had missed. A son, a whole man, a whole life, lived entirely without him. Imagine how he felt in that moment. Not just the shock of finding out, but the immediate suffocating grief of realizing how much time had already passed. It wasn't a baby he had missed, it was a childhood, a teenage years, an entire identity formed without him. The regret didn't come slowly, it hit him all at once, like a vice tightening around his chest. Now let's talk about Martin, because his side of the story is just as powerful, if not more so. Martin is not a man who sits around waiting for life to explain itself to him. He has always had gaps in his story, questions about his past that never quite added up. But he made peace with the uncertainty. He built his own path. He created his own identity, strong, independent, and fiercely guarded. Martin is the kind of person who doesn't welcome disruption. He survives by staying in control of his own narrative. So when the truth reached him, and it did not come gently, not even a little bit, Martin did not respond with open arms. He did not respond with curiosity or gratitude. He responded with anger, explosive, justified, years in the making anger. Because think about it. This man had lived his entire life without a father, carrying questions that nobody answered, filling in blanks on his own, and now, out of nowhere, a stranger shows up and says, "I'm your dad." I can't blame Martin for 1 second. That's not a revelation, that feels like an intrusion. The confrontation between them was everything you would expect and more. Bill tried to explain himself, he tried to put words around decisions made decades ago under circumstances that were complicated and messy and human. But every word he offered felt hollow compared to the reality of all of those absent years. How do you explain a lifetime of not being there? You can't dress it up, you can't make it sound reasonable. And Martin wasn't interested in reasons. He wanted accountability, real, uncomfortable, no excuses, accountability. And for the first time in perhaps his entire life, Bill had absolutely no control over the narrative. That right there is a massive moment for a man like him. What happened next is where the story gets even more layered. Because the ripple effects didn't stop with just the two of them. Everyone around Bill suddenly saw something they had never seen before. Vulnerability. The man who always had an answer, always had a plan, or was suddenly uncertain, almost lost. He wasn't just processing having a son, he was processing what kind of man he had been. And that distinction matters enormously. It's one thing to mourn a missed opportunity, it's another thing entirely to sit with the uncomfortable truth that your own choices created the distance. Martin, meanwhile, was fighting a battle on the inside that was just as fierce as the one he was showing on the outside. As much as he wanted to shut the door and walk away, the questions wouldn't leave him alone. Who was he, really? How much of Bill lived inside him? What did any of this mean for the man he had spent so long becoming? The anger was real, but underneath it, something else was stirring, a quiet, almost reluctant curiosity that he couldn't fully suppress no matter how hard he tried. There were moments when Martin came dangerously close to walking away for good, choosing silence, choosing the familiar life over the chaos that this new truth had unleashed. And honestly, who could fault him for that? Change is terrifying, especially when it comes disguised as someone who should have been there for you and wasn't. But there were also those quiet, unguarded moments late at night, alone with his thoughts, when he found himself wondering what it would have felt like to have a father, to have guidance, to have someone in his corner from the very beginning. Bill didn't give up, and this part genuinely surprised me because a man like Bill, proud used to being in charge, not accustomed to rejection, could have easily walked away and told himself he tried, but he didn't. He stayed, not with grand gestures or dramatic declarations, he stayed small, consistent, present, even when his presence wasn't wanted, showing up not out of obligation but out of something that had awakened in him that he couldn't name at first and slowly realized was genuine love, the kind that comes too late but refuses to disappear, and slowly, almost imperceptibly, something in Martin began to shift too. The impact of this revelation stretched far beyond two people discovering a biological connection. What this story really exposes is the enormous compounding cost of secrets. Every year that passed without the truth being told added another layer of damage to Martin's sense of identity, to Bill's capacity for authentic human connection, and to everyone around them who had to navigate the fallout once everything resurfaced. The consequences weren't just emotional, they were relational. They reshaped how the people closest to Bill saw him, and they forced Martin to reconstruct parts of himself he thought were already settled. And as more details emerged about the circumstances of Martin's birth, the fear, the pressure, the choices made in the name of protection, it became clear that no single person carried the full weight of blame. This was a story of cascading unintended consequences, where one buried decision became a decades long silence that shaped two lives in ways nobody fully accounted for. Honestly, what wrecks me most about this story isn't the drama or of the reveal or the intensity of the confrontation. It's the quiet moments in between. It's Bill standing alone with those DNA results shaking, not out of fear but out of grief. It's Martin lying awake, wondering what it would have felt like to have a father. Those are the moments that feel like the most human and the most heartbreaking. Bill made mistakes, real, significant mistakes, but the man who showed up after the truth came out, the one who stayed small, stayed consistent, and refused to give up even when every door was shut in his face. That man was trying to become something better. Whether Martin ever fully forgives him is almost beside the point. The real story is about what both of them chose to become once they had no more hiding places left. At the end of it all, this is a story about the things we bury and what happens when they refuse to stay buried. It's about the courage it takes to face a truth that rewrites everything. You thought you knew about yourself, and it's about the long, imperfect, non-linear road towards something that might one day look like healing. Bill and Martin didn't get an easy ending, but they got a beginning, and sometimes that's the most honest kind of hope there is. So let me ask you this. Do you think Martin made the right call in slowly opening that door? And could you have found it in yourself to do the same? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I genuinely want to know where you stand on this one. If this story moved you even a little, hit that like button, and if you are new here, Subscribe so you never miss the moments that actually matter. We'll see you in the next one.